Alrighty, people. Ended up taking the week off last week. 8 hours in the car in 72 hours is a lot of car time to... anyway, whatever. It was a good trip. Had a good time. As per usual, we're Almost Agreement at gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. While you're there, check out all the cool stuff we got going on there. Go to your favorite podcast writer. Give us a 5-star review. Like, friend, share, follow, stuff and junk. Just do stuff. Anything you can do to spread the word. We got a huge 24 election coming up, and we'll be talking about that, as well as many other cool, fun items. There's a little hockey on the docket for sure. So we'll go from it. So here we go, people. We're going to do it. Day.
Hey.
How you been? It's been 2 weeks.
Oh, I've been all right. How have you been?
Oh, man, not great. So, on the way out of town for camp, both kids are out of school with strep.
Oh, shit.
Do a remote Compass podcast so I don't expose them. I don't really give a shit. I exposed AC and Max to my potential strep carrierness.
Nice.
Which I don't think I was carrying. Or maybe I was, but not in a contagious level. But it was, is strep's the one that they say you always have, right? Like everybody's got strep on them like all the time. It's just whether or not you actually, like you got to be like, run down, hungover, or something like that, and it can kick in.
It's more chicken pox.
No, it's strep or staph. Staph's the other. That's the one I was thinking of. Huh. Staph's the one that they say, like if you swab your arm or something right now, you have staph on you. It's just that most people don't actually get staph sick unless they're particularly vulnerable at a certain period of time or something like that. Anyway, I don't think I have it. I think I just have a upper respiratory infection. I didn't test positive for it when I went in.
Yeah.
But like my nose has been running, and I just feel achy and old. Maybe it's the flu. I don't know. Nothing came back positive on any of the testing that I did. Not manageable, but miserable.
I've had allergies hit me pretty hard before.
Yeah, this might be some of that too on top of. But so if you hear me doing some of the all episode, I apologize. That's just the nature of the beast for me right now. So yeah. Anyway, sorry we didn't do an episode last week. I got into camp, jumped out of the car, got my bow, ran out in the woods, got back to camp, got something to eat. Somebody, yeah. Max had gotten his first buck that evening, so we drug that guy out, and they took it to the processor, and I finished unpacking and getting settled in for the weekend. And then we sat around, had a couple beers, passed out, got up, did the thing. And then somebody, Jennifer got one the following morning, so they came back, packed it out, took it to the processor, and then I was back out in the woods before they got back from the processor. And then Saturday evening, AC got one. And Sunday morning, nobody got anything? Oh, the over-under for the weekend was 4, and they were at 4 when I left, and I think that's where it stayed.
Nice.
That's right, because Max and Jennifer both got one on the Saturday morning portion. First couple of shots in the morning.
Damn.
On Big Gun opening weekend. So it was a good weekend. So I shared the article with you about Marc-Andre Fleury, my former Penguins.
No.
I swear I shared that to you. Apparently, he is at the Minnesota Wild now, and who did I send that to? Okay, whatever. Anyway, so they do some sort of Native Peoples night as a promo or whatever, and so like with some of the drama over the last couple of years about Pride Night and stuff like that, some of the player pushback on Pride Night and the rainbow tape, and you remember hearing about all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Apparently this offseason, the NHL really clarified their rules on what you can and can't display and that kind of stuff. So apparently he had somebody do some special art for a tribe that he has some connection to from Canada or something like that, to honor on Native Peoples Night at the Wild game. And the NHL is like, nope. And, and apparently he'd said to his agent, he's like, I don't care. I'll pay the fine to figure out what the fine is.
Right.
And so the NHL said, sure, that's fine. You can pay the fine or whatever, but we're fining your team too. And then the team was like, man, we can't. Like,
Weird.
if you want to deal that and do whatever, but like, apparently that's part of the new rule set that they put in after some of the Pride shit last year.
Because I know they just recently changed some of the Pride stuff. 'Cause I
know they're letting them do certain things.
At first they said no Pride stick tape. And then, like, a couple weeks later, they were like, okay, yeah, it's fine. You can do that.
I think the big difference is that I think the big thing that they changed this year versus last year is there's no obligation. Like, it's no special jersey like they were talking about doing last year, where it's now uniform that you have to wear. So players who do not wish to participate don't have to.
Right.
I think that's where a lot of the back and forth was last year, and I think that's what the clarification was, is like, there's a couple of particular places where you can display something, but you don't have to. And I think that's where the big...
Yeah, there were a couple of players last year that were like, I'm not going to wear that uniform.
Right. Which, I don't know. It's weird. I'm not sure how I sit on that whole mess. I don't know. I like, would... I'm trying to think of like a layperson comparative. Like, would it be appropriate for your employer to make you wear something that you don't want to wear? Because that's essentially what's happening here. Is the employer saying, you have to wear this to work today?
Right.
I don't want to wear that to work. I find that objectionable. Now, I don't know. I mean, I would say, like, in TV news, I could see some of the ladies in TV news being like, I don't want to wear that on screen. It's a little bit much. And not feeling okay or comfortable enough to say no because they get fired and they'll bring in somebody else to flash their boobies and stuff for the news or whatever. I'm just saying, like,
yeah, I can't think of a good comparable.
Like, if you take the abstract of the situation and take the particulars out, and not being a homophobe, some sort of phobia thing or sexism, racism, something like that as what it is. If you take that out and just look at it for specifically what it is, this is an employer making you wear something that you find objectionable. I would think most people would agree that's not okay, for the most part. Or at least, or the other thing, I think, if they don't say, I would say most people would find that objectionable. It's like, no, that's not okay for your employer to make you wear something that represents something that you're opposed to, or it's a job and you can quit. Those would be.
Yeah, it's also weird because it's not like it's something they're requiring on an ongoing basis. Like, this is a, hour and a half, 2 hour long gig.
Sure, but it does. I mean, that doesn't. Whatever.
That plays a little bit into it.
Like, if you worked in an office somewhere and it's just like business casual most of the time, but for Halloween all the ladies had to show titties, would it be like, no, that's not appropriate? That's
not really equatable.
I think it's pretty equatable.
They
have to wear something that they don't want to wear to work.
No.
Okay, fine. They all have to dress as Elmo for the day. It doesn't matter what it is. That's my point, is that there are people that would find that objectionable. I don't want to do that. I don't think that's appropriate that I should have to do that for my job. Because again, I'm saying take the abstract. Don't take the pure example of a Pride uniform. Just take the pure example of being forced to wear something that you find objectionable.
Yeah, but it's also the weird fact that they're under contractual obligation for whatever.
It's true. It is that contract employee thing that does make it a little bit different. I'll give you that. But I don't know. Like, because I mean, there's some crazy shit in some of those contracts in sports because they have like ethics clauses and
right.
and stuff deep down in there. So like, even if it's the off season, you can get in trouble at work, even though you're not working right now, for something you do at home.
True.
I mean, a number of football players have gotten in trouble for domestic abuse issues and lost money on their guarantees and contracts and stuff because in the clause is, domestic.
Right. And any behavior that violates, probably NFL policy.
Right. And I'm sure it's a mountain of paperwork that lists it all out and is very, very specific because that's what you do in those situations.
They'll say also you as an employee probably get their legal services.
Your own or from the organization?
I would think either the organization or the NFL in general, like the NFL Players Association or whatever.
I think the PA would do some, and I think your agent and stuff like that would be part of the process of negotiating those terms and the details of those terms. I think the NFL at least has a requirement in contract. Like you cannot get a contract to play in the NFL. So if you have an objection to some of the ethics clauses or stuff like that, you just don't get to play in the NFL.
Right.
Like no team's allowed to negotiate those out of contracts. I think. I don't know. Again, back to the point of the conversation though is that I think most people, if you put it in an abstract or you put it in a specific example that wasn't homophobic or whatever we're talking about for some of these hockey player ones, I think most people would object to it on the surface. If you just put a different example together that's functionally the same thing, just not about that cause. I think most people would be like, no, you shouldn't have to wear something you don't want to wear to work. That's crazy. I mean, hell, it's hockey players. Like they're fighting over neck guards now because some dude in Scandinavia got killed on the ice.
I think they're fighting over it.
I mean, there's some guys that don't want them. But I mean, okay.
They have their option to wear them if there's no...
Yeah.
There's not a requirement yet, no.
Right, but that conversation started, and I remember
there's a couple leagues that have required it.
Right, and there's I remember when the helmet law or the helmet rule came in, and that whole thing, and there was a big fight. There was a lot of guys who were like, no, I don't want to play this game with the helmet on.
Right.
And they were like, we just don't want you to die on the ice. That's not good for any of us. It's like, that's fine, but I'm not wearing a helmet. And there was a bunch of fight about that. And so, and that's actually like, a piece of safety equipment for the game as opposed to...
some of it was kind of like your same argument is they didn't want to be forced to.
Right, and I think
there
that's
were
why
enough that did wear it because they saw the head injuries that had happened through the years.
And right, and I think the way the NHL ended up doing that one and the visor rule and what they'll probably do with the neck guard rule is a reasonable middle ground to get it done. Because, I mean, you got to think of it like, to me, like, Pee-wee hockey, from
is required, yeah.
Like, everything's required. Like,
right.
every square inch of you is covered with something all the time and full mask and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, as you grow in hockey, you get a little bit less equipment. And so...
Well, even college still requires mask.
Yeah, full face.
Cage, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And so it's not... With all the kids that have been playing and they're playing, they're used to a lot of this stuff. And so it's just not taking one piece of gear off that they've been wearing for their entire career already.
Yeah.
And so it's an easier transition, or it's less of a transition, or whatever you want to call it. So anyway, I don't know. I think when you get into these obligated, like, political stance things in your job, I guess maybe that's better. Like, you're obligated to be part of a political issue. And it's like, I don't want to be part of a political issue. I just want to do my job. And that's what the Pride Night is to me. And again, it's taking the abstract. I have nothing against pride and people wanting to display their pride in pride. But when it gets obligated, I think that's when it gets problematic. Because that's not part of the job. You're not supposed to be a spokesperson for a movement. You're just supposed to play the game. If you want to be a spokesperson for the movement, go ahead. If it's within the rules. But I mean, there's stuff like that in football that they've had in the past where there was like, what was it? Somebody got in trouble because he put...
There's a big thing about players that wanted to start wearing pink socks on their own. And they were like, you can't do that. They're like, I want to...
Oh, yeah, the October, all the pink stuff in NFL, like, it's a very specific list of what you're allowed to and not allowed to.
Right.
Like, they're very specific about the uniform. The NFL at large is like what you can and can't have stuff on. And so it's like guys with like this dude got in trouble for eye black. I think he put his dad's name in his eye black. So he had the big black strip under his eye, and then with like silver Sharpie on it, had written his dad's name or something like that because he just died of cancer or something like that, and he got fined from the NFL for it. And again, I'll give NFL credit on it. It's like, hey, it's in the rule book. You are not allowed to put messaging.
Right.
You're not allowed to use any part of your uniform for any sort of messaging unless it's within a certain criteria, and that's not within the criteria. And so I get it. I think I think the one that I haven't seen a lot of, but I'm sure somewhere in that ethics clause and stuff like that is when you get players outside of the game who are advocating X, Y, and Z, and it's having issues for them inside the game. So I think that's one of that's the cancel culture thing, I guess, at play, where people are like, oh, I'm trying to think of it. Well, I mean, Aaron Rodgers went through it with his COVID battle.
Yeah.
It's like the world at large tried to cancel his his footballiness because he didn't play by the COVID rules. And it's like, well, he's not affecting his team at that point. It was off season. He wasn't doing anything, putting anybody else in danger. Why does that have to? It has nothing to do with him, his job, his career, his work, his coworkers. Why should this affect his future with the job as things progress? And we didn't know at the time how things were going to roll out.
Well, I mean, why should his popularity be a factor on how much he gets paid or whatever?
Because he sells jerseys and stuff. That's why his popularity matters.
Well, I mean, that's kind of in the same logic. And what I guess his fans or quote unquote, former fans or whatever are using either for or against him.
I'd be interested. I don't know if I'd heard that part of the argument though. Like the argument wasn't that.
I mean, just kind of in that same logic is why should people care about what he's saying now, but at the same time, we're okay with, I guess, like the owners and whatnot, caring how popular he is for how much he ends up getting paid.
Sure, and if that was the argument, I could get behind at least in conversation. If it's like, look, Aaron, you're affecting the bottom line here with your behavior. We need to talk about that. But I don't think that was any part of that conversation.
No.
And so, if that was the conversation, okay, that's one worth having because it's a business at the end of the day, and the owners and the league at large, as well as him as a contract employee, for lack of a better word, has some obligations to, fit the deal that is, sell tickets, sell jerseys, sell stuff. I mean, he lost sponsorship. That's fine. It makes sense to me. Sponsors didn't, he was a toxic person, so there's some of the
right.
State Farm or whatever stopped using him for ads. That's their right to do so, but that's not his job per se. Well, that is his job in those instances, but his job in those instances is to represent that brand, and that brand doesn't think he represents him anymore, so they get rid of him. Right. That tracks to me.
Yeah.
But just the, play the game. I mean, he was already being a shitbag in Green Bay at that point anyway, so, I don't know. It would be nice if he was still there and playing like he meant it, but he quit playing like he meant it a couple years ago.
Right.
That's my take on it. I don't know. It's just a funny thing being a Packers fan over the last 20 plus years now, because we went from absolute trash quarterbacks that we went through 3 quarterbacks in 5 years to Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers and now Jordan Love. So we've only had 3 regular starting quarterbacks in almost 30 years of football.
Damn.
Yeah, that doesn't happen much.
True.
And so we were lucky as fans for that. But it was weird. It was funny, though. The way the whole thing broke down is still funny to me because they both left for the Jets. They both left in a tizzy. It was a mess. And, Aaron has not got to play since he left, though, which is kind of a bummer.
Sure.
So I would, if he's going to go play. I don't want to.
Yeah, like 15 minutes or something like that?
Yeah.
10 minutes?
Yeah. I had a hard time not being a little bit, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but feeling pretty good about his downfall in that moment. I was like, I don't want to be happy about this, but I kind of am.
I think they still said he's pretty much out for the season.
Yeah. They played today. The Jets did. He was at the game, and it was him and Dan Marino hanging out on the sideline chatting.
Huh.
That's a cool picture. Yeah. So, anyway, that's Marc-Andre Fleury's helmet mess that he's getting in trouble for, or he's not allowed to wear.
I hadn't heard about that at all.
It popped up in my news feed. I was like, that's interesting. Because it is kind of weird. I don't know. All right, so here's one. You're looking at the Subaru, right?
No.
You were for a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we were watching something the other night, and the Subaru ad comes on, and they're talking about buy a Subaru, blah, blah, blah. We got the great, and they're great cars, don't get me wrong. But it's like, with this special offer we're running right now, we'll get you, 1.5% financing, and we'll donate $300 to a charity of your choice. And they have a list of 5 charities. And I'm an asshole. I know I am. But in the back of my head, I'm like, why don't you just charge me $300 less and let me pick the charity and give it to them if I want to? Why do I, it's that bothers me. The idea that the idea that a company does philanthropic work and that should affect your decision in working with that company is a good thing. I think that's good. I think it's good that you have companies out there that are actively philanthropic. Like you have Axel here in Knoxville, who's very active in community stuff. I think they donate to Knox County schools at large, and then they donate to almost every single school individually, just because. Like, they're not trying to get anything out of it. I'm sure they have employees that have kids there or something like that, and that's kind of their general rule. But, like, every school has on their fence of random sponsors has an Axel poster on it. I've seen it almost every school, at least the 2 schools that my kids go to, and a couple other ones just in passing. I've noticed it or whatever, and that's great. And I think that's a cool thing. And if I had logistical needs, then maybe I'd look at Axel to do it. Mostly because they're local, and the fact that they're local and donate local is great. And so I get this is where I get kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like, how about we don't expect our companies to be philanthropic and they just charge us, a reasonable price for their product instead of, taking our money and then giving it to a charity. It's like, well, I can give money to charity too. I don't need you to do it for me. And the wife, in her fucking brilliance, is like, it's for taxes, man. They're going to give the money. They're going to give a bunch of stuff to whatever, so they get to use it as an ad to make them look good, which is fine. But then they also get to donate $1 million to charity over the year or whatever it is because of their program. And then at the end of the year, they get to write those taxes that off in their taxes.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I mean, but again, it doesn't change the bottom line to me. It's like, well, just don't do philanthropic work, companies. Let me keep my money and do what I want with it. Yes, I want your car, but I don't want to donate to any of those charities. Can I just get $300 off the car? Probably not.
No.
I'll try if I ever had the need to buy a Subaru and the offer was going. Maybe I should do that. Put a little lapel mic on and go and try to buy a car from Subaru and be like, hey, I don't want to donate money. I don't want you to donate money for me. Can I just get $300 off and I'll donate that to my kid's school directly or something like that? I'll even put it in writing. I promise I'll donate the $300. But let me choose what it's for.
It doesn't work like that.
Right. But again, it's like, I don't know. It's just it just, every time I see that commercial, it hits me. Like, every time it hits me, it's like, no, let me pick. Because you only have like 5 charities for me to pick from, and I don't like any of them.
Right.
Maybe I do. I don't know. I haven't really looked at the charities particularly. It's odd to me. It's a weirdism.
I'd say it's more of a CYA on their end. If they were like, okay, anything of your choice, they're seeing as that third party that's donating money to, if somebody really wants to fuck with them and pick some crazy crazy charity. Yeah.
The German Socialist Party of America.
Yeah.
Which I think that's another one that you could avoid too, because I think theoretically donations to campaigns and or parties fall under the bracket in tax deductibility.
Yeah.
And so it'd be within the realm of reasonable to be like, can you donate that to the Libertarian Party for me, please?
Sure.
And they don't want to end up accidentally getting into some political whatever. I don't know. I just think, like I said, I think the core of it being just like, good for you. I'm not saying you shouldn't, and I'm not saying companies don't need to be, don't have some social obligation to be philanthropic. That's a good thing for them to do. But to use it, to leverage it like that, is like, I don't know. Have you seen all the Ford ads? Like Ford all of a sudden, since the strike, now that it's settled, they're still around. Ford started running ads about how, like, American company this, like, it was very, like, I don't know. To me, it seemed like they were just trying to get some PR for the PR shitstorm that they were in because of the strike situation.
Right.
And so they were just trying to dance around and make themselves try to put their Sunday best on for the nation, for all the headlines coming out about Ford refusing to deal with the strike groups and stuff like that.
It's possible.
I assume, or my general assumption, because the only thing I really watch, that I end up watching commercials on is I catch a little bit of NBC Nightly News before Wheel and Jeopardy. And so usually in that little bit of NBC Nightly News, there's a Boeing ad because I'm in the market to buy an airplane. And every drug company on the market and some of these Ford ads. That's all you ever see. And my conclusion is that's not, they're not buying ads to sell me and you stuff. They're buying ads to make sure the news company sells the stuff for them. Or protects their sales in the future or some variation thereof.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably just some weird contract that they have to have so many ads during the primetime hours.
I mean, I think that's what you pay.
So many times a year, and they're like, all right, and they just kind of sprinkle them in and make a schedule.
No, they pay. I mean, that's what you pay for when you're advertising.
Right.
You say,
right.
I want it during this show. I want it during this stuff.
Right.
That's when the target audience is most active or whatever it is.
Right.
Like you pay, like I would say I would say in that 6 to 8 o'clock window are probably some of the most expensive ads on basic cable channels. Because I think a lot of people at least passively watch their local and national news. And then, Wheel and Jeopardy make me feel old because it's all drug companies. And,
Yeah.
Like plaque psoriasis is a big fucking deal. Just from watching Jeopardy, I think everybody on the planet has plaque psoriasis.
It seems like it.
I mean, it's so you can one pill a day. You can have less visible plaque psoriasis. It's like side effects include everything.
Right.
I did notice that too. There were some vaccine ads that came out: flu, COVID, other ones. Now, on most of them, they do side effects warnings too. But I've noticed a couple of COVID and flu ones this year who do not have side effect warnings in their ads. And that struck me as interesting.
Because they're more advertising the generic idea of getting a flu
No,
vaccine.
this was like this was by Pfizer for their COVID-19 vaccine. Or this was by Moderna for their flu vaccine this year or whatever.
No, I haven't seen that.
Like it wasn't a generic, it wasn't like a...
I've seen it just been like pharmacy ads. And like, hey, do you know you can get your flu and COVID vaccine like together at the same time?
I've seen some of those too.
See your local pharmacy.
Yeah, no, I've seen some of those too, but no, these were like branded versions of it. This is get your Moderna vaccine today. And they do no side effects.
I haven't seen any of that. I've never seen any ads specifically by the drug makers for their COVID vaccines.
Okay.
Because you can't go in and specifically request.
Yeah, you can.
Well, I mean, you can figure out what certain pharmacies have, and you on your own volition can decide to go get this or that vaccine.
Right. Unless you're in the VA, you got the Johnson. At least at the beginning.
Yeah.
That was the only one that they were offering. But I don't know. Because there's another one that was a COVID vaccine that was Moderna and Pfizer and one other company together doing the ad.
I hadn't seen
Which is
that.
also interesting too. But anyway. What's us in New Zealand are the only ones that get them anyway. But they weren't like FDA or whatever. It wasn't from the National Preventative Association or anything like that. They were definitely drug specific company ads that I'd seen that didn't do them for vaccines. We get them in Spanish in one of our apps too, which is funny. Always cracks me up.
Yeah, YouTube's been fucking with me. I watched like one video that had a little bit of Spanish. It was
Like, dude, speak Spanish.
It was like Tom Segura like talking to his mom. I thought it'd be interesting to watch like a little bit of like him like talking to his mom in Spanish. And then ever since then, every once in a while, like YouTube will sprinkle in some like Spanish like ads, and I'm like, damn it,
Segura.
it's one time.
Are you Japanese? Yes. You've seen that?
Segura, yeah.
Well, it is when you say it like that. All right, so big election cycle coming up. As of when did this one come out officially? This is as of the 21st, so Monday, I guess. We have Criminal Court Division 2, District 6, 1 Hector Sanchez. County Commission District 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9 are all on the ballot. And we got a lot. 3 for 1. We have 2 for 2 so far. 2 for 4 so far, which Garrett Holt has already been to my house knocking on my door. I told you about that last week. 2 weeks ago.
I think so.
Garrett came by. And then we've got 5 running for 5. Angela Russell, Dale Skidmore, Brian Walker, S. Arthur Moore, and Brad Hall. 6 is Terry Hill, the incumbent, with Julie McBee Fritz, Daniel Edward Green. 8 has 2 candidates so far, DJ Cochran and Charles Chandler. Andy Fox, Barry Neal, Stacey Bryan Smith, Matt Park, and Stacey Bryan Smith again. A little error there, Trish Davis. I guess she pulled petition as a Republican and as an independent, so that she does have 2 petitions pulled. I guess whichever one she gets more signatures on is the one she'll turn back in. That's District 9. 2 assessors of property. We have 3 for law director, Book, Herrera, and Jackson Fennerer, who ran last time. Book is the incumbent. Jennifer Owen for school board 2 is the only one on 2 so far. I thought she told me she was quitting. Maybe I'm mixing people up. Probably. District 3's Angie Gothert, Patricia Ridley. District 5, Renee Jackson, Lauren Morgan, and Terry. Is that how you'd say that? Terrye Whitaker. And then District 8, Tommy Lackins and Travis Wright. So Moms for Liberty's in town. They're doing their thing. Steve Triplett's on board. He is the current chair of the school board. So I guess what I learned in that conversation is that Knox County Schools does have some latitude as far as removing books from schools and school libraries. If it's a curriculum book, they have no choice. Like if it is in the curricula for history class, they can't pull that book.
Right.
But if it's just a book
available in the library,
if it's just a book that's available in the library, the school board does have that a little bit of leniency on that. And there is a state board that selects the books in the first place, which gets interesting. I guess I'm curious. I'm looking into trying to figure out more about how that body works, because it's like the state school library board, and there's a bunch of members, and they allow books and remove books.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Let me use the correct verbiage in the world we live in. They add books and ban books at their leisure.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to use, I just don't like, we talked about this a couple weeks ago too. I have a problem with the word ban because it's multi-definitional. And while I guess it's technically true, we all want books banned, but you can't say that. Like I even saying it, I feel dirty just saying it, but we do. We all want books banned by the definition that a lot of people work under, I guess.
But I'm assuming local librarians still have latitude as to what they have in there. They just have a list of approved, essentially, of what they can have in there.
Yeah, I don't know if the individual school's librarian has a bunch of latitude, but the school board at large does. Like if the state says this book cannot be in there, they cannot be in there. If the state says this book has to be in there, it has to be in there, but there's middle ground on you can't have this book, but you don't have to have this book.
Right.
But I think that's a county-wide. I don't know that that's a individual libraries. Maybe how many copies of those books you have, because for whatever reason, this school likes it more than the other school, and they've got a bunch of them getting borrowed. I don't know. That's a good question. If I could figure out somebody to ask to get answers on that.
Oh, be interesting.
Yeah. Apparently a couple of these books, Maribel's school board heard arguments on and said, nah, we're keeping them. So
I'd say a lot of books have just kind of been in the libraries for a while, and then randomly you have new books come out, and then the library or maybe the school system in general will buy 100 copies or whatever to give out to middle schools and high schools to put into their libraries.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. And then at some point the county says, hey, we don't need these books in there anymore, and the librarians pull them and they get
I'm saying libraries in general, at this point it's been computerized long enough so they know what books somebody hasn't checked out in 10 years. They're like, all right, we can take that one off the shelf.
Right.
We can take that one off the shelf.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Like I said, I think we need to be better with our use of the term ban. I don't like the term ban. I think we just need to pick a different word because it's too nondescript to me. I have a problem with it.
Okay.
I mean, am I crazy on this one?
I think you're getting overly sensitive about it, I guess, maybe.
I mean, a lot of people are overly sensitive about book banning and calling people book banners and getting very excited about the phrasing or about the topic, at least.
Right.
But that's why I'm excited about it, is because I think it's a relevant and good conversation that needs to be had. We need to talk about these things. Is it appropriate for kids? Is it not appropriate for kids? I think that's what school boards and parents and PTOs and teachers and librarians should all be talking about. But if I say I don't think that book's appropriate for my kid, my elementary school kid, by definition, I'm wanting to ban that book from elementary schools. And by definition, I am. But I also wouldn't have any issues if some other parent wanted to go buy that book on their own and read it with their kid, or if it's in the Knox County Public Library instead of the school library and a parent wants to go borrow that book for their kid. That's between the parent and their kid. I have no problem with that. But if I were to say that I really don't fucking know, like Fight Club should be in elementary school libraries.
I mean, that's mainly what they're talking about, is removing a book from schools' libraries. No one's really talking as much about public libraries. So, I mean, what they're talking about is a ban from what they're...
Right. But my problem with it is the phrase sound... When you say the phrase, they're banning these books, 9 out of 10 times when people say it, it's not they're banning these books from public schools. Because that's the true statement. Because people go off on... And that's where I kept going in my head, is when somebody says they're banning this, like that mouse book or whatever. They're banning this mouse book. And then some comic book shop was giving them away for free for their... just giving them away to any kid that came in and asked for it.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that book's not banned. Well, it's banned from public schools. Or from the public schools disseminating the book, I guess would be the more proper definition. Like if I went and got that book from the free comic book give out and it was in my kid's backpack, would he get in trouble at school for it?
Don't think so.
I wouldn't think so either.
I don't know. That's be weird, because the school board has, labeled it as obscene or whatever. So then wouldn't that then be considered having obscene?
Right. And again, that's why the phrasing, if the phrasing was complete, I wouldn't be as bothered by it. If the phrasing was, we're banning this from public schools, or we're banning this from elementary schools. I can't, okay. That tracks me. I think this book's cool, and I think my kid should read this book. I'm going to let him read this book, but I'm also going to be like, hey, don't take that book to school with you. Like the big kid, he has this funny, I don't know where he got it. He has a shirt that says, I heart hot teachers. And he brought it home, and I was like, that's hilarious. You're not allowed to wear that to school.
Right.
I don't have an issue with the premise of the shirt. It's hilarious. But I also don't want to deal with any bullshit from the school about it if he wears it to school, which he did accidentally one day, and he just kept his hoodie on all day. It's like I realized I had it, and I kept my hoodie on all day.
Accidentally.
Yeah. Probably not.
Yeah.
Well, either way, it's like that premise tracks to me. That's just not how that is not how the conversation is in the public sphere of book banning. It sounds to me, it's like, these Moms for Liberty want to ban these books from certain places. Nobody says that second part. Tell me the certain places, and then we can have a conversation about whether that is a good idea or not. But when they just say banning these books, my brain goes to, they don't want anybody to read these books ever. They want to burn them and hide them away.
Well, there's some. I'd say there probably are some communities that have pushed for them to be removed from public libraries as well. But
sure, I agree, and that to me would be a book banner.
Like I said, I don't know. I mean, I think they are probably playing along it being more controversial. Most people not associating.
Right.
Well, yeah, most people not associating it, but also, I would hope some people realizing that most people do realize that they are just talking about that.
I don't know,
but they're also they know that some people aren't, and they'll take that as
to me,
everything.
Right? Because to me, I think you're right. There are people that want these books to not exist, and that they truly, if they had their way, they would make these books not exist. Period. Anywhere to anybody, they would destroy them, and they wouldn't let anybody see them ever again. That is a book banner to me. That nobody should. That is forbidden knowledge. Nobody's allowed to read that and learn the things that are in that book. That is a book banner to me.
Like, I haven't heard a good book burning in a while, but I mean, that was still going on in the 60s and 70s.
I think you're right. I think there are people, I think, and honestly, I think a lot of these Moms for Liberty psychos are probably that way too. That if they had their way, not only would these books not be in the schools, they wouldn't be anywhere available to any kid, at least in their jurisdiction, which the Moms for this is a Knox County Moms for Liberty group.
Right.
But they're taking their orders from the national version of it. So I think the national version of Moms for Liberty would want these books to not exist, period. That no kid anywhere ever has the opportunity to read it would be their desire. And that is book banning to me.
That sounds like liberty.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I don't like using the libertarian mantle that much, because so many people use it fucking poorly.
Yeah.
Because actual liberty would be, there's a book, you want it? Check it out. If you don't want it, don't check it out. That's liberty to me. But it also comes into the school system part of it where there's obligations. And that's when, just like we were talking about with the hockey stuff, when you start obligating stuff on people, that's when it gets a little testy. And it makes sense to get a little testy about it because, I don't know, like that UT professor who says if you disagree with me on the current Israeli-Palestine argument, you're wrong. It's like, I don't think that's, remotely accurate to any sort of scientific discussion of any sort of topic. But if my grade depends on it, then there's a fucking problem. Like, I don't, you can't make me believe something for a grade. You can make me understand it and be able to recite the ideas or whatever. It's like, you take an econ class, you're going to take some Marxism. And you need to understand how Marxism works in basic economics 101. Doesn't mean I believe Marxism, or even the teacher for that matter, believes that Marxism is the right way to do
but it was an economic
economy,
system.
But you're trying to learn how economies work, and this is one way that economies have attempted to work. And here are some of the benefits and pitfalls of it, and you need to be able to recognize those. That's education. But taking an econ class and coming out of it with a teacher saying, if you don't believe that Marxism is the best way or the right way to do economies, then you fail this class. That's not education anymore.
Right.
That's indoctrination. Or brainwashing, or one of those words. So, we teased the last time at the very end of how getting into how absolute of a free speech advocate that I am. Teased talking about that.
Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to bring it back around, or we can go on to something else if you got something.
Kind of specific.
With the holiday week, it's a light governmental week locally.
Did see similar, I guess, like statewide, there was a state Supreme Court that shot down a Republican redistricting of Nashville's Senate districts. And it had to do with the numbering and I guess when they fell in the election cycle. I guess whenever they made and did the last redistricting, they didn't number them sequentially.
Yeah.
Which then, I guess, would throw off the years in which those seats would then get elected.
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know if there's a pattern to odds or evens or whatever.
Well, I thought you talked about it here before.
Because 89 became 90.
Odds are 1 year and even the other year.
No.
Or maybe you were talking about even and odd years in general.
I mean, State House of Reps is every 2 years, even numbers, period. House seats or Senate seats are every 4 years, but I don't know how they cycle.
That's what it was. It was it was state. I'm pretty sure it was state Senate districts.
Right. And I don't know. I mean, Becky, Senate District 6 is up. That's not in the Knox County. I'd have to go to the State Election Commission. That's the Secretary of State's office.
I'm assuming it's a thing, or else this wouldn't have been a case. So I think it was when they created new seats or whatever, but apparently at some point they kind of renumbered them. But the way they renumbered them ended up kind of throwing it off and messing it up for what years, I believe. Certain districts.
Yeah, because I mean, it doesn't matter in the House, but there was some kerfuffle on the Gloria's seat going from 13, I think, to 90 when they redistricted that because they dropped 13 or 15 or whatever it was before.
Yeah.
To 90. There was some kerfuffle about
that's probably what it was. Yeah.
You can't be non-sequential in it in its neighboring districts, but 89 touches it just a little bit.
Yeah, I think that was mentioned as well. It was neighboring and it being sequential.
Right. There's something about that there was some talk on, but 89 does touch 90 in Knox County, so that argument didn't stick.
Okay.
For that particular one, but I don't know. I don't know about the state Senate one. One of the guys that works for us asked me, he said, I heard you at the podcast or whatever, and you do politics and stuff like that. It's like, yeah. He's like, what do you think of Gloria? I was like, I know what you think of Gloria, and I don't really want to answer your question. I don't dislike Gloria. I think Gloria's fantastic. But I think that Gloria has found herself in a now this Senate runs a whole different conversation, but as a House rep, she has found herself in a very advantageous position. She has zero responsibility to really get anything done. And I don't mean that she doesn't want to try to get things done. but she doesn't lose for losing.
Yeah.
Because of how popular she is with the Democrats in her district and how unpopular anything the Democrats do at the state level. She's going to lose. Like that was whatever Posabut or whatever his name was that was running against her. That was his campaign against her. Was she's been in the House of Reps for like 12 years on and off and has passed nothing.
Right.
And it's like, well, of course she passed nothing because anything she introduced is immediately killed. And like 4 or 5 of the things she introduced were reintroduced later by Republicans and do pass.
Yeah.
Because they were actually good ideas, but that's not what he's bringing up in his campaign. He's like, she doesn't accomplish anything. Which technically is a true statement.
True, yeah.
And it's like, but for the purposes of the way politics works, even on the state level, especially on the federal level, her job is to make noise. Like that's like her job is to be a problem, and she's good at it. And it's not taken away from anything. I like her a lot. I think she's great. I think she's fun, and I think she advocates for some good things. I don't fully agree with her in the totality of her politics, obviously, but if somehow the world aligned and it was Gloria versus Elaine Davis, I think I'm writing myself in on that one. Or if I have to pick between the two, I'm picking Gloria. I don't like Elaine Davis. Come on my show, Elaine. I need to talk to you. I just don't like where Elaine Davis is on most of her politics. And when it comes down to this Senate race, if Gloria gets through the Democratic primary and is the Senate candidate against Marsha Blackburn, I'm probably gonna, what's the phrase? Hold my nose and vote Gloria, because I know what Gloria does, and it's not going to be it won't be a net positive for Tennesseans in the way the federal Senate works. It may enlighten some issues federally that we may get some look at, but it's the federal Senate, so it depends on who the president's going to be when she's there. It depends on what the House is made up of while she's there, and it depends on what the Senate makeup is while she's there, if she's going to be able to accomplish anything either. She's got a better chance to actually accomplish something in the federal Senate because, at least currently,
right,
it's a close body where, it's certainly a closer body than the state House is here in Tennessee.
Yeah.
But, she's a pro-choice person, and I personally am a fairly pro-choice person, but I'm not sure if I think a constitutional amendment for the federal government of the United States should include the right to an abortion. I'm not sure that that's the way that just on a philosophical governmental issue, I don't think that's something that the federal government should be decided upon. And so it's like, well, I like where she stands on it, but I don't want her in that capacity to do it, if that makes sense.
I guess kind of.
Because I do think, I think at least, maybe let me rephrase that. If it's a constitutional amendment and it goes through the whole constitutional amendment process, which is big and complicated, and you get all the different voting and the more than a simple majority in whatever, and does a constitutional amendment has to be a ballot item too, right? It would have to be on
I think it has to get voted on by most states.
Right.
Or by a majority of a certain percentage of states.
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly how that, like if it's a constitutional amendment process, then I'm okay with it. But if it's just some weird, like redefinition under the Civil Rights Act or something like that, I don't like that. I don't like that they do. I don't like how the federal government does that stuff. And so while I agree in principle, just like this issue that Elaine Davis put up here in the state of Tennessee that's going to change the next city election cycle, I agree with the philosophy of what was done, but I don't agree with the method. And I don't, it's my fault for getting into politics and making it more complicated than just, do I want this thing or not? How matters to me too. Because if the how is okay, then other things that are how is okay too. And there are other things that go under that same set of hows that I'm going to be opposed to. So I'd rather not let that authority rest with that body. Does that make sense?
Kinda.
And so, again, I don't know. It's a weird, it's just weird all over. And so, and so like that was my pitch to this dude. Gloria officiated his parents' wedding, so he's a fan of Gloria by a lot. And like knows her personally or whatever. And it's like, well, that's Gloria in a nutshell. She's really good at that. She knows everybody. She knows a lot of people. She's like the tall Paul of politics in Tennessee.
Okay.
You remember Tall Paul?
Right. I know who you're talking about.
He was like, he used to do every Monday night. We had $2 Coronas at the O'Charlie's when we were on the Strip. Every Monday night, he'd play that. Great night to work, make mad money. We bought more Corona. Like, I think we were the number one Corona buyer in the state because of that. Like, it was crazy how much Corona we went through. And then that O'Charlie shut down, and he went and took other gigs and did other stuff. And like, I randomly ran into him at Quaker Steak and Lube on Merchants when it was still there. He was performing, and there were some people that I knew there and was hanging out. And like, in between songs, he came over and was like, "Seth, man, what's up?" I was like, "I haven't seen you in 3 years. And I was just some employee working around you while you were performing, and you remember my name. That's impressive."
Yeah.
I was like, that. I mean, because he does 4 or 5 nights a week. He's working places all over. Like, he works from Nashville. I think he lives in Nashville. At least he used to.
Damn.
And he would drive here to work like Monday, Tuesdays. Like, he had an apartment here, but he lived in Nashville. And so he'd drive here and work like Monday, Tuesday, some Wednesdays here, and then drive back to Nashville and work Nashville the weekend, and then do it all over again. But it's like, you're 5 or 6 bars a week with 5 or 6 different staffs, not to mention how many different staffs in one place work sometimes.
With turnover.
Right, And I only worked with them for like a year, maybe 2 years, tops. And I was super impressed with that. Anyway, that's Gloria. As far as I could tell, that's Gloria too. She's very good with the faces and names thing. So I hope she wins the primary. I want to see that thing go as long as possible. So far, things are stretching out to that I might have to make a real decision on primary day on which primary I want to pick up.
Huh.
Because like for that race, I'm not going to want to pick up the Republican primary because I don't. As of now, I haven't heard of anybody trying to any Republican trying to primary Marcia, because at least of current incumbents that are getting primaried, they're all getting primaried further from the right. So my girl Becky Massey is getting primaried from a further right Republican than Becky, who, to be fair, Becky is a pretty center right Republican. But I don't need any further right District 6 rep, although I do want to talk to her too. I forgot her name, but I'll get her on my list of people to try to talk to. I'll get Becky back in here over the next year or so. I don't know. The state, as far as the rumor mill and everything that's going on right now, is there's a lot of school stuff that's going to be happening in this session. So, and everybody's already in, so you're not voting anybody into this session. But if any of this stuff doesn't appeal to you and you want to make some changes on it, you better get on the phone and be like, you are not going to keep your seat if you do this. I will not vote for you if you make these decisions. And then if they do it anyway, you better not vote for them because there has to be political fallout. Because, if it's like a Zachary or whatever who has, my boy Brian running against him, if Zachary goes and votes for this thing and you fucking hate him for it, but he wins the election again, he didn't lose, even if you think he was wrong. And so they've got to lose for making the wrong decision, or they're not making the wrong decision. Now, again, it goes back to the school stuff we've been talking about. I don't know where I'm at on the school thing. I like the idea of vouchers. I do, in principle. I don't know how. I need to learn more about how this particular voucher system will work, and I'm going to have to wait and see what Knox County private schools do in response. Like, will some of these churches that do preschools and stuff open up to? Will there be more places that are offering private school options? Because I think that's going to be one of the interesting things that's going to happen, at least currently. We have a couple of charter schools. We have a couple of private schools in Knox County. Not a bunch. But if there's no more schools, then their premium goes up.
Right.
Because now everybody at least has the first $7 or $10,000 or whatever it is. So theoretically, it's not going to save anybody anything. It's just going to make these private schools a ton of money.
That's probably why Hillsdale was trying to move in to be one of the newer players. And companies like them.
They were part of the process of getting it to happen, and they wanted to be one of the first to market when it did happen. And I'm curious if any alt groups out of just to test the theory go and try to start a Satanist private elementary school.
Be funny.
They should.
I think I did see the head of the education subcommittee was, I believe he was against the whole denying of federal education funds.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't kept up with that one. I still don't. I'm waiting to see the. What do they call it? What are the strings? I mean, that's what the conversation always is. It's
right.
like, we don't want this money because we don't want the strings. And it's like, well, if the strings are you can't treat special ed kids like trash, then again, that goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's like I agree in principle on we should do something.
That's one thing they've talked about, that they couldn't find like any cases where federal funds were actually denied, like even when, shit was found that was like going on. It was more of like, hey, we found this, you need to make sure you get this cleaned up, but here's your money for the year.
Yeah.
So they're like, you're making out this big fear of, we've got to follow all these rules, and we don't follow the rules, they're going to take all this money back from us. It's like, no. What are you talking about?
I mean, it might be. It's just that they go ahead and follow the rules because they don't want to lose the money. Like that would be it'd be an interesting test case. Just, okay, well, let's keep taking the federal money and not do what they tell us we have to do to keep it and see what happens.
Right.
That's another way to get rid of the money, I guess, if you don't want to take it. Is there some reverse liability where we have to pay it back if we use it against their will? Against the federal government's will?
I mean, I think it's just more of a rhetoric game at
Probably.
this point.
But again, it goes to the question to me, and I think I think that my conspiracy theory is correct on what is the end game here. And I think the end game here is to keep Republicans winning elections. I think it's a long game, but I think that's the end game here. It's the only thing that makes sense. I mean, it's the only thing that makes sense. They want to make more conservative Christians. They want to educate people in conservative Christian values. Then and therefore they will vote like conservative Christians do. Then and therefore
there's a push for that in general, and that's always kind of been there. As to the woes in society has been the lack of religion.
But with the legal and financial backing of the state to make it happen, it's going to make it easier to do. Like, I mean, it's just more likely you're more likely to succeed in that end if they can get all this stuff through. And I mean, to be fair, it might not be. It might actually be true that some of the woes of society will fall off a little bit if we have more conservative Christian educated youths. Maybe. I'm not saying it will or won't. I'm just saying that it's theoretically I could see how you could at least make the argument that we could get there. Like some of this little petty crime shit will happen less because we have less whatever. The fear of God more than the fear of the law might get some of this stuff taken care of. Certainly a sellable argument. I don't agree with it per se.
Yeah, but I don't think it stands up in the end because it's still kind of cyclical, to where you could still say if it doesn't get better, it's like, oh, there's
right. We didn't get
so
enough.
much. There's so much ill in the world, we just haven't gone far enough.
Yeah, but I mean, and again, but for if the end is to keep winning elections, and you can always I think one of the worst things that ever happened to Republicans for the sake of elections was the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Running on we're going to fix that is so much easier than running on we're going to maintain that.
Right. True.
Running on we're going to change this to a better thing. Once you do, it's the dog that caught the car, right?
Well, I mean, you still have that argument of that fear of wanting to maintain it and not wanting to, change it.
Right, but it's not as activating. It's not as
right. I agree.
It's not as polarizing, and it's not as activating to the electorate to get out and vote.
Well, I mean, they still use that argument in other things. That they're trying to change your way of life, and about like other arguments.
Right, I agree. That's what I'm saying, though. I think that, staying on the schools, the Christian schools, and all that kind of stuff. When some of the promises made about the woes of society don't get fixed, they could still blame it on not being big enough.
Yeah. And
they can say we need more control, we need more Christian education to get to what we've been talking about.
True.
The data doesn't match because we only went 60% of the way. If we would have gone 100% of the way, it would totally have done it.
Yeah.
And since those Democrats wouldn't let us go all the way, we got to keep pushing to get it all the way. And you can just keep running on that over and over and over again because you're never going to get to perfect, but you can always blame it. And I think politically speaking, it's a pretty valid play. I don't agree. Again, it's not about me agreeing with it. Just on the politics of how to stay relevant and important when you arguably suck at everything you do. Keep voting for me because it's going to get a little bit better is a pretty potent sales pitch. So have you heard about the Rutherford County Juvenile Detention Center?
Don't believe so.
All right, so the missus turned me on to this podcast. I listened to it on the road. It's like 4 episodes. It's really crazy, and it's stuff inside Tennessee law. And actually, in response to this podcast was made from, I think it was a Politico deep dive story that they did, and then this podcast was made and advanced upon the Politico story, and WBR picked it up and mentioned and had a little bit on it this week.
I may have seen a little bit on it.
And essentially, the big thing that WBR picked up on is that Knox County Juvenile Detention Center uses, they don't call it isolation, they call it something nice. What do they call it that was nice? I do not recall the phrasing, but it's not solitary confinement. It's
therapeutic isolation.
Yeah, something like that. And where Tennessee law is clear that you cannot with juvenile offenders. And so that's one of the things that's apparently
you can
happening.
for a limited amount of time,
Right, but not like the policy, at least in the Rutherford County case. I don't know what Knox County's case is, but the policy in the Rutherford County case was it could be 23 hours a day. Yeah, 1 hour out, 23 hours a day in a cell by themselves.
Yeah.
Which is fucked up. Anyway, this Rutherford County stuff, apparently it was like, I mean, it really just comes out of this judge, not dissimilar to our former Judge Rawson, whom held the bench for a really long time. That's the similarity. That's it. I'm not trying to compare the two other than they kept getting elected over and over again. And it was not a financial thing. There's no evidence that it was a money-making scheme for her to keep throwing kids in for longer and longer periods. But, like, you know, it's Rutherford County, which is MTSU Murfreesboro.
Yeah.
And so, like, as a policy from her courtroom to the sheriff and the Murfreesboro Police Department was you take them and you process them. Juvenile offenders, you take them in, they get processed for anything. One of the stories is kids stole his grandma's Bluetooth speaker. Put him in jail. He's in jail for like 6 hours for that. And which is kind of crazy because the grandmother filed the police report on it, which is a whole other set of weird discs. But like just stuff like that over and over and over again. Underage drinking, like a group of kids got caught in a park somewhere drinking or whatever. Took them in, processed them. But like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids for next to nothing misdemeanors. And the state of Tennessee law is clear. You cannot detain a child for a misdemeanor. You can write a citation. You can do all that kind of stuff. You can do the paperwork on them, but you cannot detain them unless it's a felony. And even if it's felonies, it was like it was a short list of felonies too. So anyway, this Rutherford County, she ran on her campaign slogan was something like the mother of Rutherford County. So like it was basically she felt like she was these kids' parents and she wanted tough love.
Right.
And she didn't give a shit that the state of Tennessee law was very clear on what she could and couldn't do. She did it anyway, over and over and over again. And it was such an unsatisfying story because it gets to the end and like there's a couple of lawyers that have been suing her and suing Rutherford County and suing this and doing all this stuff, these class action suits with all these different kids that had been arrested. And, you know, these kids are adults now and their lives are fucked up and all that kind of shit. And one of the bigger lawsuits in it was about this isolation treatment or whatever they called it. And Rutherford County settles and she's in the middle of her campaign and she just says, you know what? I think it's time for me to retire. That's it. She's, as far as I know, she's still alive, living in Rutherford County, seen by the community as the mother of Rutherford County.
Yeah.
For arresting kids nonstop over and over and over again for 25, 30 years or something like that. She held that bench. It was just constant. And it's fucking crazy to me that she's not in jail. Because it's clear, like, I mean, like the crazy part of the story is this dude. So apparently, like, if you pass the bar in Tennessee and you don't have a law firm you're attached to or you're working for, or you don't have a client list yet and you just need some work, just go down to the courthouse and ask if they have any juvenile cases. Apparently there always are juvenile cases, and they're a couple $100, $300 a case. And you can just go pick up these cases and make some money as a lawyer or whatever. So this dude, apparently he had a little bit of a record. He was arrested in Rutherford County as a kid, but he did pass the bar, got his law degree, all that kind of stuff, and was trying to get to work. And his past made it a little hard for him to get a job with a reputable firm or whatever, and so he was just getting the work he could get. And first case he walks in, he picks up, and his kid's detained. And he goes down and talks to the kid, and I can't remember what the kid was in for or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so he's like, I was fresh out of law school. I was going to change the world kind of stuff. And so I started digging into the case. And I look up Tennessee Code, whatever, and it says clearly the misdemeanor that my client was charged for, you cannot detain for. And so go show up at the hearing or whatever, and I get up there and I make my speech about how I brought the piece of paper with, or brought a copy of the code with me. And it was like, right here it says in the code that juvenile offenders cannot be detained for any reason for a misdemeanor, or can only be detained for a certain number of felonies, and this doesn't apply to my kid. She looks him in the face and says, well, he's a threat to himself or others. He's staying in. And it was just years of that, where he would go and pick up these cases to make a couple bucks, and every kid was detained, and none of them should have been detained by state law,
right,
over and over and over again. And she's, Rutherford County paid so Rutherford County citizens, are tax bill is paying some of her lawsuit issues, but she's just fine. She's just going to...
Sure, she knew that she was playing on that caveat, because I'm sure there is some kind of caveat in there, like, unless this person is a threat to society, that within the judge's discretion.
Right. And that's really what it comes down to.
I mean, that's where you have to take it up to, like, a judicial, ethics board.
That discretion is there, but...
Right.
It's just like, okay, I grant that discretion has merit. That in cases, it makes sense that a judge should theoretically have discretion on some things like that. Like if the kid is potentially suicidal or something like that, maybe we should keep him detained, make sure he doesn't kill himself. That's important. But I mean, every single kid, every single time,
right?
I doubt it. And so you're abusing that discretion and should be punished for it. And since you're a judge, you have so many protections from liability for your discretion that she has no legal problem with anything she did. It's so gross. It's gross. It was a crazy little 4-parter.
Yeah.
I was listening to it. I was like, yeah, here we go. They're going to bust her ass. They're going to bust her ass. And get to the end of it. It's like, oh, that was so unsatisfying.
And I'd say now that she's retired, there's no retaliatory thing they can really do.
Yep. Yeah.
Unless she did anything criminal, but outside of that.
But I mean,
because even like the ethics thing, they would pretty much just remove her from it. If they found that she, was abusing her power as a judge, she would just be removed as a judge, maybe even lose her law license, etc.
Yeah, I don't know.
She would lose professional credential, but I don't think there would be criminal things unless she actually did something criminal.
Yeah, well, I mean, she should, but there's no civil suit. I don't know.
And that's something that could be there.
I don't know if it is. That's the problem with it. Is that was the hard time they were having. It's because they have so many legal protections as judges.
Right.
It's really hard to bring a
like I said, yeah, that's where within she's able to use her discretion.
Yeah. I don't know how to fix that problem either. I understand the premise of having that discretion, but it's just a gross ass story.
Right.
It was very unsatisfying, very very intriguing. I was pull over. I got about halfway through the first ever episode, pulled over, took a pee, and then queued up the rest of them so I could listen to them without having to pause. And so, it's good news. Good media out there doing good media work. I liked it. I enjoyed it very much.
Oh yeah.
The University of Tennessee is scrubbing diversity from groups and titles. So, the Office of Diversity and Equity or whatever is now called the Office of Access and Equity. They're replacing diversity with access.
Weird. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, it's a weird little thing because they didn't it was a very it was I think they put it in a press release Wednesday afternoon, which they always talk about in media. You put the bad news on Friday afternoon because nobody pays attention. Well, you do it on Wednesday afternoon before Thanksgiving. That's a Friday on steroids. And so it's very low key. They made the announcement on it or whatever, and it's just weird because it's at the same time the city of Knoxville is working on adjusting their diversity and inclusion in their procurement processes because they don't buy enough either services or goods from minority, women, veteran-owned companies in the city.
Okay.
Which I don't know. I go back and forth on how I feel about the city's version of things. It's like, well, what you should be doing is buying the best version of whatever it is you're looking for the best price. I don't care who's doing it. I think the only caveat I put on it is I think you should be required to hire local if you can.
Yeah.
Like if it's a unless there's a huge discrepancy, like, okay, you've got a major bridge project. You're redoing James White Parkway's bridge. It's a major bridge project. Is there a Knox County company that has the skills and assets to pull a project like that off? Okay, if there's not, then I can understand going outside of town. But, redoing some electrical in the city county building, there's enough Knoxville electrician services that could perform that service for you. I think you should hire one of them, unless none of them can do it. For everybody that's bidding in Knox County as a Knox County company is 3 times what a Anderson County company offers.
Right.
Like, it's got to be dramatically different for you to pick outside. And so that to me should be the rules. Who cares who owns the company? Get the service you need done well for the best price you can get it done at locally.
Yeah.
Now, all things being equal, I suppose I don't hate the premise of looking for a quote disadvantaged company to try to help them out. Okay. If everything else is more or less the same, if they're going to do the same quality work, or they can provide the same quality service, or whatever it is you're looking for, and their price is about the same, and you have like Hatcher Hill, who's a big, huge company who makes plenty of money, and Billy's Construction Services, who's just a small company, but they're doing the best they can, and they're capable of doing it. They just, they're not that great. They're not big enough they need the work kind of stuff. Sure.
Right.
I'm good with that. That doesn't hurt my feelings too much.
And that's where the rub can come in. It is when you get in with the city, you start getting more and more contracts.
Right.
And that's where you can get into the whole buddy system of constantly using the same contractor over and over again.
Right, but again,
and it being seen as impropriety, whether it's not, or
right,
whether it's they are the best company for this at the best price.
Right, but I think as long as you have the public bidding process, you're going to at least get the price part of the conversation publicly stated. Right. But it's like, what do most people do? You find an electrician that you call out to do a job, and they do a good job. You need an electrician the next time around. You call the same electrician,
right?
That's just, it's like, I've hired this guy before. He does good work. His prices are reasonable. Why would I try to find somebody different? Unless I call him and be like, he's like, hey, I'm booked for like 2 months. It's like, well, my AC's out, man. I need this thing done today.
Right.
He's like, yeah, I can't. Then I'll call somebody else. But, that's, I don't know. But again, I'll agree with the premise, though, is that I think that there is an obligation for a government body to put a little bit more effort in than I do to get my electrical done. But the UT thing's just like it's. I think it's politics, and it's politics in schools, man. I think it's UT trying to.
They're trying to avoid it,
right?
Essentially,
I think it's UT trying to prepare for what they see the state doing over the next couple of years. I think it's clear out of like the Sexton types and the Lafferty types. Not Lafferty. I always do that. Sorry, Lafferty. I don't know you well enough, but I keep conflating you with Zachary. The Sextons and the Zacharys are out there. Probably, getting on the podium and pounding their fist and yelling about this liberal university.
They got a diversity department.
Right. This diversity and equity shit's fucking everything up. And so I think UT's just trying to get ahead of it. And trying to avoid that, which it's not like it's going to take a big... it's not going to take a lot of editing to their speech to change the word diversity to access and quickly demonize the word access the way they demonize the word diversity.
Possibly.
And so
they're trying to allow access on community college campuses.
It's like, yeah, we want access for more people to get more quality education out of us. It's like, okay, well, focus on the quality education.
They're trying to open up the borders of college campuses into the minds of our children, our brethren.
But again, it's like that goes back to, it's like the University of Tennessee is a state organization. They exist at the behest of the state of Tennessee. So the state of Tennessee elected body gets to say these things, gets to have oversight on them. That's why That's why and how it exists. And I don't know how to work away from that premise without it being the political quagmire that it is. And so to me, it's just acknowledge that it's a political quagmire and maybe make it so that that's not the state's job. And then we don't have to worry about the state's influence over X, Y, and Z. Because that's really what it all comes down to. And so, I don't know. That's my high horse on that one.
Yeah.
But anyway, like I said, it's funny. They're just kind of sneaking it out and just kind of going low key on it. Like, whoop.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's really a big story anyway. I'm sure there's been other times. I mean, they didn't make a big story about, was it the communications department that had a whole big kind of coming together? There was something that was like brought into the communications department. There's been a few different departments that have been like combined together into a new department.
Oh, I mean, they were talking about getting rid of or breaking up humanities. That was a big thing.
Yeah.
There's basically there's this science, bachelor's of science, bachelor's of arts. Yeah, so you have the two major colleges on the University of Tennessee campus are the art school and the science school, and then you have all these different little subsets underneath it.
Yeah.
So like business is under the art school, where biology is under the sciences. So you have a bachelor's of science in biology. You have a bachelor of arts in business administration. That's what I have.
Yeah.
So I have a BA in BA, where there's a bachelor of science in, or maybe I mixed them up. I don't remember. Maybe I have a BS in BA. Yeah, I got a bachelor of science. Business is under science. And so one of the things they're doing is talking about putting more colleges, separating the colleges out further. And so like the humanities and like the foreign languages would be inside one college, where biology and astronomy and physics would be under another subset college.
They did some of the communications as well, because I've heard about it on the radio station, talking about they were still in the communication building, but they were now under a different like subset.
Huh.
So they did something in the communication,
Right.
the College of Communications or whatever.
Right. Which I would assume is a college of arts. That's what it is. So, yeah, business is science, arts and humanities. And essentially the argument from the arts and humanities side of the spectrum, which I think communications probably should be under, theoretically. So like journalism. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really like the distinctions usually it's like, well, 2 + 2 = 4. Mathematics is a science. Buy product for X, sell it for X plus percentage equals profit. Business is a science. But arts isn't A + B = C. Arts are arts. They're subjective to the beholder. And so, because I think part of what it was is like, so the foreign languages are under science because hola means hello. Like it's scientific in the sense. And so one of the things that the foreign language parts of the humanities were concerned about is that if you separate the foreign languages from the sciences, currently when UT gets a federal grant or a endowment or something like that for the sciences, the foreign language department gets a little chunk of that. Where if you separate the schools, it just stays inside different parts. And that was part of the conversation about it. I don't really understand what the big deal is. Like why what it shouldn't. I don't know. It's going into how UT funds itself is a whole rabbit hole. I can't even pretend like I have the time, energy, or capacity to understand. Because that's what it comes down. I mean, it's it's just like everything else. It comes back to money. Where's the money go? Who gets to touch it first, and who gets to shave a piece off here and there before it gets to what it's actually intended to do? So,
inflated budgets.
I mean, maybe not inflated budgets as much, but it's like at some point you have the dean of the Foreign Languages Academy inside the School of Sciences who needs to prove their need to exist. That they want to keep their job, whether the job's needed for the grand scheme of things or not. They still want to keep their job. It's not so much inflated budgets as much, it's just what's the word? Bureaucratic bloat, maybe is a better way to put it. You need to have somebody that oversees this thing. I mean, do we? And if we don't, that means I lose my job. So yes, we do. I truly believe that this job is important, and I do important work here.
Right.
You better believe it. And so there's want to protect, and protect budgets, like you said, because, like any good budget, you want it to be as much or more next year.
Right.
And you need to have some sort of data to back up how you can ask for more budget, or at least the same.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Again, the politics inside education, there's only one way out of, and that's to take state control out of education. And that's a scary jump, and I get it.
Because that's where you get into where's the funding coming from then.
Right. Individuals,
Right.
people, and the people that can afford the better education will get the better education, and those kids will then go and get the good
But then
jobs.
how much power to those
And then-
said people that are giving larger chunks of money have upon
Right.
what the education should or shouldn't be?
Right. Yeah. And it's like, and in a
So, yeah,
perfect world, you have good parents who want a good, well-rounded education for their kid, and will be like, "Hey, you're the pro teacher here. I'm going to pay you to teach my kid. But in the real world, you have parents that are neglectful and don't care, and they'll pay the cheapest person to teach their kid. Probably me. That's how I would probably do it. Or people that want a very specific set of things taught to their kid, and want a very specific set of things not taught to their kid, and then you come out with this weird, dysfunctional human being as an adult. Because of what that household's version of education decided to be. Like, I get it. Like, I get the premise of why. Like, again, it goes back to be like, on a lot of things, I understand philosophically why a system like public schools makes sense. Like, I understand philosophically why a central body who is not beholden to the parents, who's set up with a goal to educate kids to be the next generation of worker bees and whatever it is to keep this society moving and rolling forward. Like, I understand the idea behind why that makes sense. But inevitably having that state run is going to be chock full of state issues and therefore politics. And it's like the one thing we don't want in schools is politics. And if the state's running the schools, politics are coming with it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
That I don't know the way around it. And again, I understand the premise. Like, if I was left to my own devices, I don't know what I would have done with my kids, education-wise. If it was just like, it's like it's like getting your driver's license. You just go in there and you do the process and you get the driver's license. Well, it's like, oh, kid's 5 now. It's time to go to school. You go in there, you fill out the paperwork, and they're in school. And with both of them, there's a little tinge in the back of their head. If you want to do this thing, you don't do it correctly, and you don't fill out the paperwork, you can actually get in legal trouble for not enrolling your kids by a certain age and stuff like that. And so there's like a little bit of like, I don't want to get in trouble for not putting my kids in school. So, okay, here we go. And that's that. It's just so normal. But I don't know. I would think after a couple decades of it, it would normalize into some sort of system where everybody knows the process of how you get your kids into whatever school you send them to, and when the right time to start school is, and how to get, how to afford it. I mean, affordability is always going to be the problem if it's privatized, if it's fully privatized, because you don't necessarily have the economies of scale, and you certainly aren't going to get a huge tax rebate as an individual.
Right.
If the state of Tennessee dropped public schools, period, from anything in their budget, I don't think we're going to get a decrease in our sales tax. I don't think the state is like, hey, we're going to stop doing schools. We're dropping sales tax to 4% or 3% or whatever the equatable math is.
Right.
So it's like, it's not like you're going to keep more of your money at the end of the day. You just have to pay for school by yourself now.
Yeah.
But again, it goes back to my stupid Subaru example. It's like, don't take my money and let me make the decision. That premise tracks for me on a lot of things. And that would track on this one too. But alas.
No scat.
Diversity in city, no diversity at the University of Tennessee. I think that was the bulk of what I knew I had. Going to the Preds on Tuesday? I'm excited. What do you want to do? How do you want to do that? What time you got to work? You going to just leave right after you get to work?
I got that whole day off.
Okay. Are you leaving in the morning? What time are you going?
Yeah, might as well leave probably mid-morning. Yeah.
All right, I got to figure out. I gotta touch base with the missus on pickup and stuff like that. Make sure we can get all that covered. I mean, it's Tuesday. We don't have the other kids, so.
All right, we can do that too.
I mean, if I got to wait till pickup, it's 4:00. But you get us there at, 5:30? Puck drops at 7:30, so we should be good if we do it that way.
Yeah.
I like to get down there on Broadway, see some of these hooker mobiles that apparently everybody's been bitching about. All these
What?
The pedal pubs and shit, and the
What'd you call it? Hooker mobile.
And the party buses. The party buses are the hooker mobiles.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard about like the mutual, like everyone's pedaling and you're just drinking, going down the road.
I mean, that sounds like fun. I would give it a go. If we would just do Broadway, sit and have a couple beers while we ride our bike around, sweat it out while you're doing it, so we don't get too hammered.
That doesn't sound fun.
I mean, if everybody's pedaling, it's not too bad. I wanted to do a boat. Get a community, like 12-seat boat where you're all sitting. Because, I mean, you've seen them, right? Like, you've seen these pedal cars?
I've seen the pedal cars, yeah.
Yeah.
You want to do that same concept on a boat?
On a boat. So a little boat, and you're floating, and everybody's pedaling, and it's flipping the little thing, and you got the guy that's running the boat that's, steering or whatever, and talking about, the local beer that you're drinking while you're on the boat.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool. On a game day, go down there to Sevier Avenue, park over there, pay premium to get on the pedal boat, and pedal across the Tennessee River, drinking a couple beers, and drop you off at the Fall Navy landing there, go into the game.
Possible.
I mean, I think just I think any sort of water taxi would be a good play on game days. It's a pontoon boat, load up a dozen people, $10 a head, take them across the river.
Yeah.
I'd pay $10 to be parked on the south side, not have as much traffic to deal with getting out of there.
Yeah, but it's going to be a long process for you trying to get back across at the very end of it.
Yeah, that's true. But it's a long process no matter how you do it.
Well, I mean, at going in, you can trickle in.
Right. But going out, everybody's going out at the same time.
Right.
You're waiting for rounds and rounds of the boat to go back and forth.
Right. And you're taking
everybody's
10
exhausted.
people at a time.
Right. Everybody's exhausted from the game.
You're like, I'll be back in 10 minutes because I'm driving a pontoon boat that seats 10 people.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's like, it's okay. So if you parked right there next to, like, if you got like a premium parking space that you paid $50 for or whatever right there in G10 or whatever it is right next to the stadium, even if you're at your car, you're not leaving for another hour.
Right.
So, I mean, potato, tomato.
Yeah, but you're not having to stand, I guess, like right there in a giant clusterfuck of people waiting to just...
I mean, there'd be lots of permitting and shit. I'd have to figure out with the city to be able to do it either way.
Yeah.
But it'd be something. I mean, again, this is one of those, I can't believe nobody else has thought of this. I'm sure somebody has, and it's just too hard, expensive.
I guess a better way to do it would have, a certain amount of like smaller, like 10-person pontoons, but have like one or two like big ones for
post game.
Yeah, for post game,
maybe, or just have like just a fleet, just like 10 boats, 15 boats. Picking up 100 people at a time. I mean, just do it. I mean, realistically, like when it should be,
you'd have to have a pretty big dock system to have that fleet.
The best
of
way to do it would be to just do it like a bus, where it just goes like there's just it just goes one stop. It's a couple stops. I don't know. It's an idea. It's something that would be. I think the pedal boat would be the pedal pub boat would be the coolest.
Yeah. Maybe.
Liability insurance would be a lot on that, though. Plus, it's technically
drunk on the water.
Well, plus, technically, you can't drink on the water anyway.
Yeah.
I say technically, very strongly. But I think, I talked to somebody. Was it Lauren? I talked to somebody about it. I pitched it at him. I was like, think that's something the city would let me do? They're like, we had some companies coming in to try to do the pedal pubs on the street.
Well, no, I mean, I think there's like the dinner boat. I think you can drink on there.
Yeah. Well, we had a friend's wedding on there.
Yeah.
I mean, the marriage only lasted like a year and a half, but
yeah,
it was a crazy weekend. We got off that boat, went straight to the airport, flew to New York for another wedding.
Fun.
Yeah, it was a miserable weekend. Gorgeous wedding in New York. It was Mark Twain's daughter's house.
Wow.
Just up in like New York proper. Like flew into Newark, got lost in the city for a while, stayed in some skeezy airport hotel for like 4 hours, got our rental car, and just drove. I can't remember. It was like felt like maybe 2 hours, hour and a half out of New York, out of the city. But it was like city traffic trying to get out of there. So it was probably, if there was no traffic, it probably been like a 45-minute drive.
Yeah.
And it's gorgeous estate out in wherever. But Mark Twain's daughter's house.
Damn.
Really cool wedding. That was a fun weekend. But that marriage lasted at Mark Twain's house. The one on the
Nice.
riverboat didn't. But it was a good party though. When you're there's exceptions to the rules. Been downtown at all for these closed street days yet?
No, I heard they were, I guess, leaning more towards being okay with it.
I mean, I like it. I think it's cool. I think they should let some of those other parts of the city do that. Let's let some of the city, like I've noticed something that I wish they would have done on game days when the Strip was still cool.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's like Gay Street's a state. Is Gay Street a state road? Broadway is.
Not sure.
I don't know where it changes designation. Because like that was always what we were told about Cumberland, is that, well, that's a state highway, you have to get state permission, all this kind of shit.
It's that, and there's just so limited other ways around it if you did close down Cumberland.
Yeah, getting into Children's and Fort Sanders up there would be a real problem for the
Right.
ambulances and whatnot. But I mean, you could have waited. You could have done it at where the Starbucks is now to where the McAllister's was, and had plenty of access up into Fort Sanders from either end, and just had that couple of blocks closed off and let people wander comfortably and not have to worry about traffic.
Yeah.
All things being said, I don't remember anybody getting hit by a car. I almost killed a kid once. He almost got hit by a car.
Nice.
Dragging the kid out, kicked it out for something. Can't remember what he got kicked out for. He started a fight or something like that. We were throwing him out the whole way to the door, fighting. I'm not leaving. Fuck you guys. And we're dragging him. And as soon as we touched the threshold, which was where we gave that last little push, he gave up, pushing back. And so we ended up pushing a little harder than we needed to because he wasn't pushing back anymore.
Right.
And he tripped and fell and landed on the sidewalk. And like his head was like on the curb, like an inch from the curb. Car came by right then. At least from my perspective, it was inches from that car just taking his fucking head off. So we changed policy. The policy was you put them on their ass on the sidewalk.
Right.
You don't throw them.
Sit down.
You sit them down. You set them on the sidewalk and don't let them back in. That scared the shit out of me. But, we live and learn, and hopefully don't kill anybody. What do you got? Anything we missed? Local?
Not to my recollection.
I mean, this election cycle is going to be big. It's going to be nasty. As not big as it was of the last even cycle, because the last even cycle was the huge-ass one with all the judges and shit. We only have like one judge in this one. So all those 8-year terms that got elected last time, we don't have to deal with this time around.
Election's coming up like next fall.
Yeah, March primary, which is Super Tuesday. And then August general for local stuff. November general for state and federal stuff.
Right.
And so, but I mean, I like I said, I think Massey getting primary is an interesting one in and of itself. I'm curious if anybody's, I'm curious if any Republican center right is going to try to primary any of these current far left or far right districts. Like, is there any Republican that's going to try to primary Zachary in 89? Is there any Republican that's going to try to primary Lane Davis in my 18?
Doubt it.
I doubt it too. And that sucks. But it does give me the option when it gets to time on which primary ballot I'm going to pull. Because there are some Republican primaries that I care about, and there are some Democratic primaries.
It's possible. I mean, essentially you have both party heads that are changing up.
Yep, Matt's gone. And
you said Daniel's moving on?
Daniel's he's been gone.
Okay.
He left before the beginning of this year.
Gotcha.
He didn't finish his term. But they have a new party chair who's a little more... He's kind of halfway between the old Knox County Republicans and Herrera. He's not quite as loud and boisterous as Herrera was, for lack of a better word. I did talk to Matt. He's going to do one more show with us before he skips town.
Nice.
And I do want to go check out his tobacco farm at some point and hunt it. He says there's turkey and deer.
Nice.
So I got to figure out North Carolina out-of-state hunting rules so that I can go and hunt with Matt, because Matt owns guns, everybody, in case you didn't know that. Did he tell me that off air? I don't think he told me that off the record. I'm pretty sure he said it on air. Too late now. He said it on air. I remember. Pretty sure. So, I'm excited. He's going to bring. We're gonna find a time where it's going to be. I don't know. I'd rather just have a show with just him. But at some point, he's going to introduce me to. I think it's RJ something, who's at least his interim replacement for his eventual, and who he's endorsed to be his elected replacement when their next voting party thing commences. So, but that was kind of cool. You sent me the article, and I was like, "Yeah, Matt already told me about it."
No, I said I heard. Yeah, I heard about it on the radio. Yeah.
I was. That's kind of fun. I enjoy that little bit of. That's my favorite, I guess. Collateral damage. I don't know. That's not the right word, but that's my favorite collateral of this job. Is that I get to know things before other people get to know things. And people reach out to me on things like this. I get emails from people every once in a while, from candidates and stuff like that. Ooh, SEMA's running for to replace Gloria. That's an interesting one too.
I
haven't seen who else has picked up petitions for that seat. I like SEMA. I think she's. I think for now, at least, she's a real person running for getting into politics, not a politician yet. Yeah, I think that covers about everything. Going to the Preds game, going to go to Nashville. I did buy us a parking thing at Bridgestone, so we'll be parking at their parking garage.
Nice. So there was a few around it when I was looking at different packages.
Yeah, so I got tickets and a parking pass. I gotta get my login for Ticketmaster or whatever. Make sure I have that with us, because I had to.
Yeah, see if you can do both of them on there, or if I need to download it too.
No, they'll both be on there. It'll be. I've used it for other things in the past where it's like, I hold my phone out and they scan it, and then I swipe and they scan it, and that's both parties or whatever. I mean, hell, Variety Playhouse used them.
Huh.
It wasn't Ticketmaster. It was ADS or ADX or something like that. But it was the same thing. Walk up to the door, hold my phone out, they scan it, swipe it, they scan the other one, and we both walked in. That was weird. That was fun, but it was weird.
Yeah, because I know they said there was some big change up at Bridgestone that was trying to speed up the process of people going in. Yeah. I'm assuming it's just kiosk to where, maybe you're just scanning it to the kiosk.
Yeah, I don't know. Whoever gets us in finds their seats.
Maybe there's fast passes for
watch some hockey
for people.
Get in that ice rink. Go nutso. So, friend.
Got a century overdue library book has finally returned in Minnesota.
Minnesota. Okay. Tell me more.
Let's see here. Titled Famous Composers and featured the likes of Bach and Mozart. Let's see. Turned out while someone was sorting through a relative's belongings, St. Paul Public Library checkout slip shows it was last borrowed in 1919.
Do they have to pay the fine?
Don't believe so.
Because, at that point, that fine's got to be more than the book's worth.
Yeah, it's not just an old book, it's an artifact.
Yeah. That's random. That's funny. It's weird about going through people's stuff like that.
Yeah, oh shit, what's this? Oh shit, they never took it back.
I'm going to put that in the night drop. So
Nana!
Your great-grandfather borrowed this book, stole it.
This is Roy McIlroy's ball lodges in the lap of a spectator at World Tour Championship.
I saw that. It was on SportsCenter or something like that.
Most awkward life of the day. I
can't. I like golf on Sunday afternoon while I'm half napping and stuff like that. I can't imagine going and spectating golf in person.
Yeah.
Like, I've heard people talk about it. Like, going to the Masters apparently is a really good time. Because it's really just a drunken debauchery for the fan set. It's just boozing it up. But watching golf on TV and how close these people stand, like on drives, like it's like I could shank a ball.
Right.
Like I've shanked a ball like straight sideways.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, it's not safe for you to stand anywhere from where I have the ball in front of me in any direction. Behind me, it's unlikely that I'm going to hit it backwards. But
it's not often that pros are doing that either.
I know, but
Right.
they're also like, especially nowadays with all the tech and stuff like that, they're like, 185 miles an hour, this ball's coming off the club.
Right.
I'm pretty sure you're dead. If you get a golf ball to the forehead at 184 miles an hour, pretty sure
Yeah.
you're at least real fucked up, if not dead.
I was looking at how close people stand like further down the fairway.
Yeah.
Because even it's still coming at a good speed.
Yeah.
And they're still really close. And that's where a little bit of trajectory can get off, or like a little bit of wind can blow it off.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, well, it's like that she's just sitting on the side of the fairway, and it didn't land in her lap. It bounced and rolled and whatever. I don't think it
Oh, yeah. I didn't see
I don't think it dropped out of the sky into her lap. I think it hit the ground and bounced once or twice before it landed on her. But shit. And plus for the sake of the sport, how weird is that? It's like you hit you throw the football and it bounces off something and it goes in the stands. You have to go up there and get it. Like, that's like,
Right.
It's just for the sake of the sport. It's weird. So like, one of the things you watch, like if you watch PGA and stuff like that, they'll have the rules guys. Like there are like their version of referees that kind of wander around, and there'll be guys standing. Like I bet you Rory's first thing when he figured out what was going on, he's like, "Get the rules guy over here."
Right.
And they're sitting discussing like, "What do I do?"
Right.
Like, am I like?
There's a lot of things that have happened at this point, but that's a lot of those weird things that like, okay, we got to make another rule on this.
Right. And it's just like, well, what do I do? Because I can't hit it off her. Am I allowed to pick it up and she move and I drop it where she was? What's the play here?
Right.
And so, I don't know. That's just one of the crazy things about golf to me is how, like, flexy kind of the rules are, especially when it comes to spectators. I think by rule, a spectator is.
I mean, they're treated almost as like a bush or a tree.
Right.
Like it just runs into it. It happens to run
It's a
into
feature.
it.
Right.
You've got to play it from
it's a feature on the course or whatever. And it's like if you have a ball that falls inside a bush and doesn't even hit the ground and gets stuck in the bush, there's the rule on what you get to do to get your ball out of the bush.
Right. Is it playable or not playable? Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, again, that's just the crazy part about golf to me. So, you got one more?
Here's a good one. Got robbery suspect's colorful underwear helped police arrest him, authorities say.
Bad criminals are good stories.
It was like a year later. Multicolored briefs peeking out above a robbery suspect's low-slung trousers helped police arrest him more than a year later.
See, people, this is why you should pull up your damn pants.
Yeah. Happened at a tobacco shop in Queens in September of 2022. Three masked men got out of a Mazda, entered the store, according to a complaint filed in federal court last week. Two of the men pointed guns at employees and customers, while the third emptied the cash register and grabbed merchandise and employees' cell phones. The robbers fled in the Mazda. Surveillance video were dismantled, though the media showed the third robber wearing brightly colored briefs with a large letter R in white and the year 1990 in yellow. An anonymous tipster passed along the Instagram handle of the suspect with the colorful underwear.
Yeah, I mean, that's very specific. It's not like they were like bright pink and that was all they had to go on. Like, that's very specific.
Right.
That's fun. Dumb.
It was yellow with a big R.
Right. And a year.
Yeah.
And.
How many of those are there? Yeah.
Right. There can't be that many. And it's at least enough for the probable cause or whatnot, so they can go in there and start at least talking to them. So, what a crazy story. That's fun. All right, people. I think that's it. Last call. Anything I missed? I'm sure I missed a bunch of stuff. Hope everybody had a good, fun Thanksgiving. How was your Thanksgiving? You have a good time?
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Man, I ate.
Definitely.
And it did not help my sinus, whatever the fuck's going on. 'Cause I'm, like I don't think it's supposed to. Right. the post, the post turkey binge lull is certainly exacerbated by my current sinus state. And I just woke up feeling like a ton of bricks this morning. So I'm gonna drug up with some NyQuil or something here in a minute. I'm gonna pass out hard.
Heck
and
yeah.
sleep in tomorrow. And then it's time for parades. Got a city's parade on Gay Street. Rocky Hill Christmas Parade is this coming Saturday, a week from today for the release date of this. So I'll have to probably not get too saucy on the podcast next week, assuming I'm feeling better, because I'll have to get up in the morning and finish decorating my float.
To the parade.
My last parade? Oh, they kicked us out. They kicked out my other parade.
Nice.
We had I had the shop. I entered the shop to do a booth in the market that they do in the parking lot.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let us do it.
Huh.
They sent us our money back.
Not surprising.
I mean, a little. Like Roosters is in the parade. Union Jacks is in the parade. That weird pharmacy place that's across the street's in the parade, and they sell CBD and holistic medicines and stuff like that.
Yeah, but that's not their main focus.
What's her face? Who ran for Senate 6 a couple years ago? Who's got her dispensary in the old city? Dr. Jane. And her chakra clinic or whatever that she has in the shopping center. They let her put a booth out. Just saying. They're open to others, I guess, if they're close enough. And my residence isn't close enough because that's not what they're talking about.
I'd say if it was straight up tobacco shop, they wouldn't allow it.
Yeah. I mean, it's supposed to be kind of family oriented stuff, but it's like, I mean, again, talking about going to golfing tournaments and stuff, and it's just booze fest. Like, there are people who park.
Yeah, but I mean, like Roosters is like
it's a corner. It's a neighborhood
sports bar. Union Jacks is an English pub.
Right, and it's the neighbor. They're the neighborhood watering holes, and I get that. But like, there is a guy every year who has a box truck that he parks on at Roosters in front of Roosters with the truck facing the shopping center. So the back of the truck is on North Shore, and they have a whole like spread and bar and all that set up in the back of the truck, and they all party out of the back of the truck for the parade. And so it's like, I mean, it is a modern family event. There's no shortage of alcohol and other illicit substances, for lack of a better word, that are a part of this event, even though it's a family event.
Interesting.
And so it does tweak my, I don't know, my bullshit meter, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, for you not letting me in. But, oh well, that's my life. That's what we do all the time. I have to deal with that on all sorts of aspects. Pushes a button. Call it a show. Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. It's another fun-filled show. Talking about stuff going on. We're going to get more into these county and state elections coming up as time progresses. We got a ton of candidates. We'll see who turns positions in and stuff like that. So, we're Almost Agreement, almostagreement@gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. While you're there, check out all the cool stuff we've got. Go to your favorite podcast provider, like, friend, follow, share, 5-star review. Tell your friends about us, all that kind of stuff. We're going to keep doing stuff and talking about things and whatnots as time progresses. And that's our show. Talk to you all soon.